right, folks, welcome back to the Nest for today. Watch the Yard just recently released an article that was shared in one of the group spaces I'm a part of, and I could not miss this opportunity to delve into that particular article. But before I delve into that article, bear with me today. I want to kind of jog your memory first, and start off with Kamala Harris at the Freedmen's Bank. Now, first and foremost, just a little quick thing, a quick history around the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank is for was supposed to be for the descendants of the enslaved in the United States. And today she's recently released an article around a opportunity agenda or opportunity economy for Black men. So before I go into that, I'm going to play this for you, and I'll be stopping at different places and parts, but just going over why we're not falling for it, Kamala and Democrat Shields, because you guys continue to disrespect us, and I'm going to show you how. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and click play.
Office at the Executive Office Building. Mother Fletcher, as many of you know, is 107 years old, and her younger brother, Mr. Van Ellis, is 100 years old, and they both survived the Tulsa Race Massacre.
So she's starting off with her audience here about the Freedmen's Bank, talking about the Tulsa Race Massacre, as we know, that what we call Black Wall Street, but this happened all over the country, also in other parts. You have the Wilmington Massacre here in North Carolina. You also have Black Wall Street located in Durham, North Carolina. But I wanted to kind of give a little brief breakdown as to what she's talking about and how she's setting it up. Pretty much like what she's doing now with her campaign with making Black Americans think that it's for them. But let's keep listening.
Fletcher and Mr. Van Ellis were just children when a white supremacist mob burned down Black-owned homes and businesses and decimated the Greenwood district.
Now, she had no problem mentioning a Black-owned home and business right there, folks. No problem mentioning it. Let's keep going.
But 100 years later, the memory of that tragedy, the smoke in the streets, the piles of bodies, was fresh in their minds, as was the memory of the thriving community that they lost. By their account, by every account, the Greenwood district was a very special place, and I think we all know was a very intentional place. It was not the product of whim or fancy or circumstance. It was a design, and intentional in that way. And it was designed and intended to be a community, a thriving community within a community. An economy in which Black people supported one another.
That's her second time mentioning Black people, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, folks. So she's mentioned Black people twice, and she's admitting in her speech that Black people were thriving on their own, and she's saying that it was an economy inside of an economy. And part of it is because as a Black person during that time, you could not go to white barbershops, you could not go to white restaurants, you could not go to white libraries, you couldn't get on white buses or white cab. So that's what's going on here at this time, folks. But I want you to continue. So pay attention. She's used Black twice. She's used Black people twice now. So pay attention.
Lift one another up and modeled excellence in which Black people could determine their own future.
She's now mentioned Black people 3 times, folks.
Some of us refer to that as self-determination. To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy. So I talk about that today because I believe we must draw from the lessons of Greenwood and Freedman's, of Sweet Auburn and Blaylock Van.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into the transition. Now we go from talking about Black people at the beginning to now we're going to transition this into something for somebody else. That's what this means. And I'm drawing this out so that people can learn how to. She's never going to come out and say it the way that I just said it. She has to do it in political speech. Political speech is meant to be deceptive and to be divisive for the audience so that it leaves room for interpretation or room to say, oh, she didn't mean it that way. She literally just mentioned Black Americans 3 times before she began her transition. Here we are. Oh, and look at that, 3 minutes and 5 seconds in. And she's talking about we have to learn from those lessons. So what we have learned is, one, until recent, the federal government has not stepped in to do any type of investigating. And truth be told, they don't need to investigate. Everything has already been laid out and proven. The Department of Justice, the Department of Justice needs to do some prosecuting down there in that particular state because everything has been proven. And what they were hoping is that those individuals that had lived through that would just die off and forget. No, nobody's died off. Well, some people have died off, but the survivors are not going to forget, and we're just not going to let it go. But I'm doing this for a purpose because I want you to hear something.
We must be intentional. Here's what I know to be true. America is a nation that is driven by the ambition and the aspirations of her people.
I really hate hearing stuff like this, folks. We hear it from a number of politicians. When truth be told, America was built off of the backs of enslaved Americans. That's what America was built off of. Not all this other stuff that they throw in there for fluff.
But I also know that in America today, deep racial disparities continue to hold people back.
Now you're learning, boyo.
Pay attention. Now she's gone from Black people to now people. See that transition, Black folks? Black Americans, did you see that? She started off 3 times. Rewind this video. She started off 3 times talking about Black Americans. Now she's talking about people. And let me say this too as a disclaimer. First of all, again, to fair use, this was on Forbes. This was on Forbes. If you want to see this video, you go to Forbes and look at it all the way, because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But pay attention to how everything that's supposed to be meant for Black people all of a sudden becomes something for all people. And the issue I have with that is Black Americans don't get to co-opt everything for other groups of people. So while I'm not upset that other groups of people get their set-asides, why does it seem as if though Black Americans can't have their own set-aside specifically for their group, just like other groups?
It's for Black people anyway.
I don't understand that, but let's continue to listen.
From achieving all they can.
That they is not specific to Black Americans, just point it out.
Today, the wealth gap persists. Today, the homeownership gap persists.
And what we know about those gaps, folks, and I've done this on some of my other videos where I've shown videos of those gaps. This is what we know about those gaps. In those gaps, Black Americans are at the bottom, period. Black Americans lead in homelessness and mass incarceration. That's what Black Americans lead in. Black Americans are the last for median household income. So let's continue to hear her talk about those gaps. You guys can go do a quick Google search on who's at the top for median household income.
Today, access to capital is unequal. As one example, Black entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to report that a lack of access to capital negatively affects their profit margins.
Now she's going back to Black Americans. So now she went from 3 times talking about Black Americans to 2 times talking about all people. And now she's going back to Black Americans. Okay. And there's a reason why she's doing this back and forth. I wanted you to pay attention to the transition.
I believe that the actions we are taking and must take to address these disparities will define our nation's strength and economic strength in the 21st century. Our economy is growing faster than it has in decades.
Except it's not growing for Black Americans. So just so that we're clear about that. And the data is already out there on that.
Unemployment is down to 4.2%, and nearly 6 million jobs have been added since January. As a nation, we cannot take this growth for granted.
Let's talk about this. This video was done 2 years ago too. And when we talk about that growth, nobody talks about the quality of that growth. So let's talk about that. So the quality of that growth, they were not good paying jobs. They were just quote unquote jobs. So her speech on this is just deceptive, but let's continue to listen.
And we must make sure that everyone shares in this growth.
There she did again. Everyone. See that? She went from Black people to everyone. See what I'm saying, folks? See the transition pieces?
In order to sustain it. In a moment, the Secretary and I are going to sit down here and we're going to discuss some of the intentional actions that our administration is taking to lower costs for families and to remove barriers to success within all communities.
There's that language again. All, everyone, all. Remember Obama just told us the other day she's going to be a president for quote unquote all Americans. Remember Kamala Harris said in one of her speeches, I'm going to be a president for all Americans. Folks, here's why I'm bringing this up. Because that all piece does not necessarily mean U.S. born citizens. That all piece is a whistleblow to immigrants. More importantly, illegal immigrants.
This person is a daughter of immigrants. A daughter of immigrants. A daughter of immigrants.
So even right here, where she's speaking at an event that should have been for the descendants of the enslaved who became freedmen, she's talking about all. See what I'm saying? Let's keep going.
As but one example, we are increasing access to capital by supporting community lenders, also known as CDFIs and MDIs. One of the last actions, in fact, that I took as a United States Senator was to team up together with so many of the leaders who are here. And following up on that, today, I'm very proud to announce that almost $9 billion is now available to increase lending to small businesses in underserved communities.
By the way, folks, underserved communities does not mean Black communities. Just want to pay attention to that. And why am I making this distinction? Because what we have learned is, especially with this particular administration, when you say underserved communities and communities of quote unquote color, that typically means everybody else on top of Black Americans. That's what we've learned. Look at the picture of this shot. And it's almost disrespectful to me. Well, excuse me, it is disrespectful. Something that's meant for the descendants of the enslaved right now, this is how things get co-opted for Black Americans in the United States. Just look at this picture. Look at this shot right here, folks. Let's keep going.
And I'll say, yes, that's a lot of money. I'm going to go off script for a minute. Yes, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of dough. But what we also intend to do is to look to you, the leaders in the private sector, to talk about how we can maximize the capacity of that infusion in a way that everyone is participating.
Again, there goes that everyone speak. That everyone speak. That everyone is not Black Americans now, but she started off with Black Americans. So to the untrained ear, it sounded like, oh, well, this is something for Black Americans. No, she said everyone and all people.
In the potential to exponentially grow that investment in our communities. But needless to say, these $9 billion will dramatically increase the work of more than 175 community lenders across our nation. This effort is close to my heart, and I know it's close to many of us. And it is certainly critical to our communities in every way, in terms of their potential, their capacity, and meeting their dreams with support and encouragement.
Now, what did any of that have to do with the descendants of the freedmen? Because that they that she's talking about is not Black Americans. That's not who that's for. So let's continue.
Throughout the year, I have consulted with the most active community lenders in our nation, those who serve rural communities in Oregon and urban communities in California, including my hometown of Oakland, California.
Even though you grew up in Canada, but we'll let it live for right now. That was a nice try.
To serve low-income communities in the Mississippi Delta. Bill, I think you are here somewhere. Pouring capital into communities that are starved of it. Providing financial services to communities that lack those services entirely. Communities like Itabena, a town of 1,800 with a median income of $17,000.
And your administration?
Communities filled with people with ambition, with aspirations, with dreams for themselves and their children and their community. I have consulted with many community lenders who serve tribal communities in the plains.
Oh, whoa. Call the police. I would love to see some of the tribal videos where she's gone, and maybe I'll do another stream on that. How often do the descendants of slaves get brought up at tribal functions? Just curious. Somebody has any thoughts on that? Please leave a comment. Would love to do a review on it. But just notice how she did that at the Freedmen's Bank Forum.
Plains of South Dakota, where Native women are making quilts that are important to their community, knowing there is a market for it based on the culture and traditions of those communities, and who needed a community lender. They needed a lender.
Now, there's a chart I have around reparations for some of the tribes in the United States, especially the federally recognized tribes. There are other content creators that have gone over the benefits that those tribes have, to include and not limited to that tax exemption piece. So I'm amazed at how even right now she's at the Freedmen's Bank talking about tribes. And, you know, no disrespect to any of the tribes, nothing but love for the tribes, but we don't get brought up at tribal functions as descendants of the enslaved. So I'm showing you this for a purpose.
But it just so happens that the community lenders understand best the needs of these communities and see the potential then for growth. Community lenders understand the value in providing access to capital directly to these communities. They sit down with the folks in these communities.
So I'm gonna stop it right there. She's talking about the folks in these communities, which does not necessarily mean you, Black Americans. So what I also want to do now, I'm going to stop sharing this one. And what I want to do is show you what she had fresh off the press for today. I'm in a group space, and this particular piece was shared from Watch the Yard. So if you guys have an Instagram, you guys can go on Watch the Yard and pull this up. All right, so the title of this is Vice President Harris releases opportunity agenda for Black men. Amid all the backlash she's been losing from Black men. So what she did is the same thing she did with the Freedmen's Bank. She made it and others. So there's nothing specific for you, Black Americans. It's not specific to you. It says and others.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
Building on her plans to help more small businesses start, innovate, and expand, and increasing the tax deduction for small businesses from $5,000 to $50,000, supporting innovation hubs and business incubators, and cutting unnecessary red tape, Vice President Harris today is announcing up to, meaning it's not going to be the same for everybody, especially Black people. up to $20,000 to Black entrepreneurs and others who have a good idea but don't have the resources, connections, or access to capital to get their businesses off the ground. Ma'am, you can stop trying to play us as Black men. We're looking at this thing right here that you have that says and others, and we're calling it out. And we're going to call out this piece too, where you have up to $20,000 to Black entrepreneurs and others, because I bet you any amount of money that those and others, whomever they may be, will have more forgiven up to $20,000 than those that are Black. So let's go over this too, folks, because I don't know if some people know how the how a tax deduction works. And by the way, I'm not a certified public accountant. You guys can go check this with your accountant, but I'm certain you have to spend that money first and then you file for it. So if you spent for it and you file for it, that doesn't mean that it's going to come back to you the way that you spend it. So that's just something I would pay attention to. Let's go to the second one. So number 2 says, and I'm not going to read all of this. You guys are more than welcome to go to Watch the Yard to read this whole thing. I just want to give my take on it. Championing education, training, and mentorship programs that help, listen folks, that help Black men get good paying jobs in high demand industries and lead their communities, including pathways to become teachers. In partnership with trusted community organizations, HBCUs, and federal agencies, Vice President Harris's agenda is focused on creating and investing in programs that help expand pathways for Black men to get good paying jobs, whether or not they have a college degree. This includes investing in more Black male teachers. But see, the problem that I have with this is, folks, we know that teachers don't make that much money. This is ridiculous, Kamala. Promoting registered apprenticeships with credentialing opportunities in Black communities. She was specific right there. She will bring together high schools, trusted community organizations like the Urban League. I'm not even going to touch on that. State and local governments and the private sector to ensure that Black men are able to get the training and technical credentials they need to succeed in registered apprenticeship opportunities and act. Folks, it's the same thing she just said up here at the top. This is literally the same thing she just said at the top. Strengthening the public service loan forgiveness program. She would support and strengthen the public service loan forgiveness program, which Trump tried to eliminate. Again, what does Trump have to do with anything? Again, Democrats, y'all are killing me. Stop trying to include Donald Trump in anything that you are focused on Black Americans. Stop. You guys keep doing that, which Trump tried to. The reason why she wrote this way is because a lot of brothers are saying they're going to vote for Trump. And guess what? That's their right to do so if they so choose. To recruit and retain Black male teachers. So what I'm gathering from this is she's championing education, training, and mentorship programs that help Black men get good paying jobs in high demand industries and lead their community, including path. She wants them to become teachers. And the reason why I'm saying that is because male teachers, okay, Black communities, training and credentialing to succeed in registered apprenticeship. And then here we go right here again where she's talking about Black male teachers. To me, there's a push for you to be a doggone teacher, and no teacher in this country can afford to live. What are you talking about, Kamala? Investing in leadership training and mentorship programs. Oh my goodness. Black men need to be paid, ma'am. They need to be paid. Black men, contrary to what you or the rest of the world might doggone think, have credentials. They're not paid for their credentials. Case in point, Black Americans have the most student loan debt and have the highest interest of that debt, yet make the least for median household income. Black Americans. So the credentialing is not the issue. See, credentialing only comes up for important places when it's something for Black people. Now all of a sudden you got to have 5 million credentials. When there are people of other races and other nationalities that come off of McDonald's working lines and can get those high-paying jobs. Investing in leadership training and mentorship programs. She would support programs like My Brother's Keeper and increase investments in the leadership training and mentorship programs, again, within public schools as well as HBCUs and MSIs to provide more opportunities for young black men to develop leadership skills early and throughout their development. Man, we have leadership skills and they have already been developed. We need to be paid for the skills that we have. So again, this is a big fat nothing. It's only encouraging you to be a doggone teacher. Let's go to the next thing. 3, supporting a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency and other digital assets so black men who invest in and own these assets are protected. Off the top of my head, how is somebody that makes the least in median household income? I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about to the rules. I'm talking about for the rule. So the rule is, and it's not my rule, folks. This is out there on the internet. Go look it up. If black Americans make the least for median household income, how in the heck are they supposed to invest in a doggone asset protected by doggone cryptocurrency? If they make the least, they're not making the money to live now. So now that they're not making the money to live, how they gonna take the money and invest in cryptocurrency? Vice President Harris knows that more than 20% of black Americans own or have owned cryptocurrency assets. So again, she's focused on 20%, not the 80%, which is why her plans will make sure owners of and investors in digital assets benefit from a regulatory framework so that black men and others who participate in this market are protected. Folks, I want to bring it to your attention again. And others. So again, we go from black men and others. See, black men and others. I'm not going to do nothing that's specific for black people. No. And she's 100% accurate. Here it is right here. Black men and others. All right, number 4. Launching a national health equity initiative focused on black men that addresses sickle cell disease, diabetes, mental health, prostate cancer, and other health challenges that disproportionately impact them. Folks, let's read here. Black men face elevated risk of health conditions like diabetes, sickle cell disease, prostate cancer, and more. That's why Vice President Harris will cap insulin costs at $35 a month. Lie. And out-of-pocket spending on prescription drugs at $2,000 for all. See. There it is right there, folks. All Americans. Bringing down costs for black Americans who are 2/3 more likely to have diabetes and are more likely to report rationing their drugs because of cost concerns. See, the reason why you have a cost concern is because they're not being paid. See, when you're paid the right way, you don't have cost concerns. You know why? Because you got that income. It's something else that I saw that I wanted to bring up too. And here's the thing, folks. If you go and look up what ethnic group in this country has who lead in diabetes, it's not black Americans. It's American Indian and Alaska Native. Diabetes by race and ethnicity, 13.6% of American Indians and Alaska Native adults. Then you have 12.1% of black adults. So we don't lead in diabetes, ma'am. And I wanted to bring it up. You guys can go and look it up for yourself. But I'm not going to go through the rest of this because, again, this is not anything specific for us. Remember, it's for all Americans right here. Now, somebody will say, oh, well, she meant it this. No. Something that, again, is supposed to be, they bowling something that they said is supposed to be for black men, and then they just othered it for all. No. Let's see here. Legalizing. Hey, we ain't got no reparations for you, but guess what? We can legalize recreational marijuana and create opportunities for black Americans to succeed in this new industry. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm certain that there are licenses right now. In fact, let me see if I do a quick search on who holds the most marijuana licenses. A 2017 survey from Marijuana Business Daily found that 80, now keep in mind it's 2017, we're in 2024, and look at what Kamala Harris just said. A 2017 survey from Marijuana Business Daily found that 81% of American cannabis business owners and founders were white. I'm gonna try it again. 81% of American cannabis business owners and founders were white, and 10% of cannabis business founders identified as Hispanic and Latino, and then Black. So keep in mind, she wants to highlight here where it's a stark contrast with Donald Trump, whose Department of Justice threatened federal prosecution for marijuana in states where marijuana use is legal, threatening the unjust and disproportionate use of marijuana possession laws to put Black Americans behind bars. She right now, since let's say they've been in office since 2020, they could have been doing something about this with every Black man that was charged with possession of marijuana, and upon his release, giving him a license. Is what they could have done, realistically. So we don't have any reparations for you, but guess what? We can help you sell some. We can, get you into, we can get y'all to do whatever it is you want to do with that marijuana. And folks, I think that this is the end of this particular article, but why was this important to go through? Because the headline of the article says, Vice President Harris releases opportunity agenda for Black men. And what I just showed you was, on multiple occasions, it is and others. Okay? All right? Up to and others. Minority serving institutions. Okay? And others. Okay? And others. And others. Okay? But we know that y'all are the most locked up. We know that we're the most locked up. So anything, and again, Obama, you did this. Anything that the Democrats say is specifically for Black men is always co-opted by quote unquote and others. But folks, thank you guys for taking some time to spend with the Eagle today. Black Eagle is headed back to the nest. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great one.